So it's time to talk some Belmont stakes. It's time to preview the third jewel of racing's Triple Crown. I am Gino Bacola, alongside my good friend Eric from ETOF 21 Sports. And we've done this a few times where we've done a preview of the Kentucky Derby, a preview of the Preakness for folks who maybe aren't the most hardcore horse racing fans. Maybe you're not someone who plays the races every day. You're not deep in the weeds. Maybe you're more of someone who watches the Triple Crown races. You play on the big days. You play on the Breeders' Cup. So you need some help. You want to know what to do, but maybe some of the terminology is over your head sometimes, or maybe you have questions to ask that don't get answered. That's where we have Eric come in, because my friend Eric is a very, very sharp sports bettor. So Eric, I love when you have always done this through the years with me. When you've asked me a lot of the questions and interviewed me, I always think it's cool because you are asking me different questions than like if I go on a really hardcore horse racing show. Right, they're going to ask me some different questions, but you think about racing differently because you kind of think about it more from like a betting sports, football, basketball. Talk to us about like your background and how you got into betting.
Grew up in a small town in Michigan, had a casino there, snuck in, met a guy who kind of taught me how to bet, and been doing it ever since, and kind of have grown into betting a little bit more. Always willing to learn. And, that's why I like talking to you about horse racing, because for me, it was always sports. I got into horse racing later in life. And, I'm always texting you, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So I always appreciate when you're able to let me pick your brain and for me to try to expand my horse racing knowledge.
So Eric and I linked up about 6 years ago or so, and we started previewing football games and basketball games and anything you could gamble on. We've worked at a few different places together, and I love talking about a game or a sport, anything I'm going to bet on with Eric before I make my decision. So we've got the Belmont Stakes coming up this weekend. I want to give a few quick promotional things to let everybody know that we've got the Belmont Stakes packages available right now. So we are recording this actually on Tuesday night. There's racing at Saratoga Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week. You can get a package that has all 5 days of past performances, all 5 days of clocker reports for more than 50% off if you bought them individually. Or maybe you just want to purchase the Saturday report. That's fine. You can get the Saturday past performances, Saturday clocker report just for Saturday. They've got clocker reports for each day. So if you want those individually, we've got a ton of different stuff out here, Eric. We can take a quick look at the field right here, but I'm going to pull up the past performances in just a second. So I'm going to hand the baton over to you, my friend. You can ask all the questions and get us set up for this year's Belmont.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you is the Saratoga influence, with the Belmont Stakes being held at Saratoga for the second consecutive year and the distance shortening to 1.25 miles. How does the venue change influence your handicapping approach to traditional 1.5 mile race that's normally held at Belmont?
I think you treat it just more fairly, because we're going to be dealing with the same distance that we were dealing with in the Kentucky Derby. We're going to be dealing with 1.25 miles here. So we don't necessarily, I think more than looking at a lot of these horses and upgrading them, there are horses who I would have said probably don't want to go 1.5 miles, probably can't go quite that far. Horses like Rodriguez, for example. I'm not quite sure if Rodriguez really wants to go 1.25 miles, but I certainly would have been more concerned about him going 1.5 miles. I think you can upgrade him a little bit coming back down. But what I do think, Eric, I feel like it's just going to play more fairly than when you have a race like 1.5 mile race. Maybe 4 or 5 of the runners in the field won't want to go that far. So you're not going to get their best effort. I feel like at 1.25 miles, this is the distance where you're going to get most of these horses' best efforts.
When we look at the pace scenario, considering the field's composition, what kind of pace scenario do you anticipate unfolding in this year's Belmont Stakes? And also, which horses are likely to set or press the pace, and who might benefit from a fast or slow early tempo?
Some really good questions. So if you're watching this and you're looking at the screen right now, there's a feature in the all access past performances. It's called Timeform US PPs. You can also purchase this by itself individually in the shop. When you click on the Timeform US PPs, it has a projector here. Eric. So it shows you what they think the pace will look like. It shows you where each horse will be, and then it will also give you their finishing positions if you want to go to finishing positions and see. So just looking at this particular projector, they think that the 3 and the 5 are the 2 horses that will likely be out front, and I completely agree with them. Those 2 horses are Crudo and Rodriguez. So if we go back to the past performances, we can see Rodriguez is the 3. He's the Bob Baffert trained runner. He did not run in the Kentucky Derby. He was supposed to run in the Derby, but he had a little bit of an issue right before. It wasn't a big problem because he didn't miss a bunch of training. He only missed about a week, but it was the timing of it leading right into the Kentucky Derby. So he's one of the quickest, and Crudo is the other one. Those 2 are the speed horses in the field. If those 2 go at it and battle, it could set up for some of the deeper closers, but I think you were kind of hitting on what I feel personally is the most important factor of the race. Who can sit right behind them? Who can be the horse that's maybe sitting third, right behind Crudo and Rodriguez? And if those 2 horses end up battling it out, can the one right behind them take advantage? And can that be the horse that gets the jump on the deeper closers? And honestly, the horse who I think, Eric, is Baeza. I think he could get that trip, because if you look at his races before the Kentucky Derby, he was sitting a lot closer in the race. It was in the Kentucky Derby when he had to come from way out of it. I think that had to do with his post position because he was way out there. He was number 21, drawn way to the outside. So I'm looking at the race. The horse who I think could sit the perfect trip is Baeza, the 6. And if we actually flash back to the Timeform US, they have the same thing. They actually have Baeza and Uncaged as the horses that are kind of sitting in 3rd and 4th.
Given the draw, how significant is post position at Saratoga's configuration for the race at this distance? Are there any horses whose chances are notably enhanced or compromised by the starting gate?
You know what? In a field like this with 8, I don't think it really hurt or hinder. Like, I don't think it's going to impact anyone too much. Horses like the 1 and the 2, Hill Road and Sovereignty, they're going to take back because they're not very fast early on. They're more of closers that want to do their best running late in the race. Rodriguez will go. Uncaged will be somewhere in the middle. Crudo will go. If we had 4 or 5 speed horses, it might impact them based on the configuration of the track. But I think the way the race is with just 8 horses, with what looks like 2 speed horses, I don't think anyone will particularly get impacted by the draw.
Journalism's Triple Crown journey. He's the only horse competing in all 3 Triple Crown races this year. How might the rigors of the schedule affect his performance at the Belmont? Are you going to see any signs of fatigue? I mean, that what he did to win the
Preakness
was absolutely insane.
So, Eric, let me tell you a little something.
For being a sports bettor, though, that's a fade the next time up,
right? Because that he gets the buzz, and it's funny because I'm like you two. I'm a sports bettor and a horse racing bettor. I bet a lot and quite often on a lot of different races and different games. So I love sports. I root for the Dodgers and the Lakers. I have the teams that I root for. But for the most part, the big exciting moments that I have are when, like, I'm winning money, right? Or winning, like, some of my bets. I hit a pick 5, or, you know, we hit a parlay. We hit something that we really like. I was in a room, like, on a top floor watching the Preakness at Pimlico, and coming around the turn, right when there was all that bumping, and it looked like he might go down, everybody went silent for a second. And there was this little moment where I felt it in my belly, like when you're, you know, you feel it when you're a kid watching sports. And I got that, like, oh my God, he's going to win. And the whole room we were in was silent. And I screamed it out at the top of my lung. He's going to get there. And it's like, I could see it happening. And my friend Alexa was laughing. She's like, how did you know? But we get kind of a little cynical sometimes as gamblers, right? And that was a moment that I went, oh my gosh, but you're spot on. Everybody watching that had that feeling too. And so now through the Derby, through the Preakness, journalism has become a horse that a lot of people like, people are rooting for. You might get a little extra money on him because of that. So, how short is too short? I think he's an obvious player in here. But there's the big three we can talk about, journalism, Sovereignty, and Baeza. I'm a little less on Sovereignty than of those three, and we can keep going through your questions. But journalism, I was worried, Eric, before today. Today's Tuesday. It's funny. I was a little worried, like, okay, yeah, that was a lot that he had to deal with in the Preakness. Is he going to be able to, what's he going to look like on the track? This morning, we got some video from some of the DRF staff that is at Saratoga, and he looks unbelievable. Like, he's trotting and prancing around on the track like nothing. He looks better, fuller. His coat looks good. Like, I'm very impressed visually by what he looks like at this point. So he impresses me more and more. Like, for us gamblers, he's the type of horse you're always trying to beat, but he's a really cool horse.
Now, Sovereignty's freshness factor. He skipped the Preakness to prepare for the Belmont. And in your view, does this layoff provide a competitive edge in terms of freshness, or could it pose challenges in maintaining the form that he had when he won the Kentucky Derby?
That's a really good question. I was just watching earlier the webinar that DRF had with Andrew Beyer and Stephen Christ and Brad Free. And they were talking, Eric, about how they think that horses 20, 30, 50 years ago ran faster, like speed figures, because they were more tested, because they were like battle tested, and you're sort of able to kind of develop through your races. And then by the ends of the year, you start running a little bit faster. I almost wonder that, and you'll see that here, right? A horse like journalism, we're asking, is it going to take a lot out of journalism? Is there an opposite factor to that, right? Does he build stamina, confidence? Does he kind of figure it out more as a racehorse, right? The more races you run. Perfect example. Think about what he just had to deal with in the Preakness, where Sovereignty didn't. Like, he almost went down. He was bumping around. He had to navigate through traffic. He learned something. And Umberto Rispoli learned something about the horse that day, what he can do, what he's capable of. We don't know if Sovereignty is capable of something like that. But did it take it out of journalism? I'm not worried quite as much. I'm not. I'm more concerned about like the shape of the race with journalism versus Sovereignty. I think in the Kentucky Derby, Eric, it was a perfect setup for Sovereignty. The rain on the track. I think a lot of different factors played into Sovereignty getting a really nice trip and getting about a max on the type of race he would need to win. I feel like the others could get better races than Sovereignty. They may have better opportunities. The race could set up better for them. They won't be as far back. Sovereignty was 16th out of 19 horses early in that race in the Derby, and then he came flying late. If they don't go that fast early on, and let's say he's 7th of 8 in this field and has to pass most of the field without that fast pace to run into, that's my concern about Sovereignty in this particular race. Less so about the time in between or time off, more so about how the race is going to set up.
Now, Baeza finished 3rd in the Derby, but also skipped the Preakness, considering his closing style, the race dynamics. You see him as a legitimate threat here to the two favorites.
Yeah, because I think he's a horse who's sort of like a later developing horse. So when in the Santa Anita Derby, journalism beat him, but Baeza had the lead in the race and journalism ran him down. Then in the Kentucky Derby, it was flip-flopped. Journalism was the horse who made the early move, and Baeza was the one who came running late. Now, I really think that was mainly because of the post position. I feel like with post 19, Flavian Pratt sort of let a lot of the stuff to the inside of him happen, and then he waited till the end to make his move. I think Pratt's going to do the total opposite in this race. I feel like, Eric, he's going to try to get in front of both journalism and sovereignty, because for fans that bet Baeza, we want him to have a little bit of advantage over horses that might be a tad better than him. Can that advantage be he moves in front of them and he's the horse that gets the jump on them? The races that he ran at Santa Anita in April, in February, in January, if he runs any of those races where he's sitting just a few lengths off, that's exactly what I'm hoping for as someone who's going to back him on Saturday.
Now, you mentioned Rodriguez, returning after missing the Derby and Preakness due to the foot ailment. How do you assess his readiness and potential impact for Belmont, especially with jockey Mike Smith?
So he wouldn't be in the race if he wasn't completely healthy. But healthy is different than being race fit, right, Eric? Healthy means he doesn't have an injury, but is he going to be as fit as some of these other horses when Rodriguez has not run since April the 5th now, right? Everybody else in here has races in May, maybe a couple races in May, and he doesn't have anything since April. And on top of that, he missed a little bit of time training. So he's going to be healthy when he runs, but to ask a horse in the toughest race of their life to come into that race off a little bit of a layoff, when you've missed a little bit of training, you're going to be facing the toughest field you've ever faced, and you're going to try to go longer distance than you've ever gone. To me, there are just a few too many things against Rodriguez coming into the race that make me concerned. When you're in a big race, when you're in a big game, I want everything to be going well for you leading in. You don't like hearing that horses had to miss time and he had to miss the Derby, the Preakness, he wasn't ready. So we'll probably see him on the front. He's either going to be in first or second at the beginning of this race, and he'll take him probably as far as he can go. I like him better than Crudo of the speed horses. I think Rodriguez has a much more legitimate chance to win the race. If he would have ran in the Derby or had one race between now and when we last saw him, I would upgrade him even more. I'm just worried that when the others start to run, when it's time for him to show his fitness, I'm not sure if he's going to be completely ready.
Now, is there any value plays we can play underneath?
Yeah, so Horseshoe, I think, is going to run really well and possibly outrun their odds is Hill Road. Hill Road is 10-1 on the morning line, one of the bigger prices in the race. What I like about Hill Road, just from an underneath standpoint, he is finally getting to put a couple races together. What I was just mentioning with Rodriguez was a problem for Hill Road. Hill Road would race, then he would have time off. Then he raced in March, and then he had a little bit of time off. So they give him a shot at the Peter Pan, and now he'll be able to run back 4 weeks later. It's a perfect timing for him. And with his running style, he should be able to pass maybe half the field, or some of these horses who don't want to go this far, or who maybe don't get the greatest of trips, or if the speed horses battle. So I think Hill Road could at the very least be a horse who hits the board. And of the longer shots, he would be the one that I really think could make some noise. I have a hard time on paper, Eric, getting to Uncaged. He's just coming off of a really disappointing effort last time out. And based on his buyer speed figures and his ratings, he's never run any races close to fast enough to compete here. I guess maybe the 8 Heart of Honor, we could give him one more chance because he's only going to be making his second start in the U.S. He might have needed that first race to kind of figure some things out and could really improve in his second start in the U.S. So of the bigger prices, I would go for the 1 Hill Road. Maybe you throw in the 8 in the third and the fourth spots of your tries and your supers.
Now, you mentioned Uncaged, one of the Pletcher runners, along with Crudo. Given the history at the Belmont States, how do you evaluate their chances, and what should bettors consider regarding these long shots?
Honestly, I feel like this was a smart move. I think that Pletcher kind of looked at the field. There were only going to be 6 horses in this race if he didn't enter these 2. So I feel like he looked at the race and said, a field of 6 in the Belmont. I've got a couple horses that I like. Maybe they haven't been as good yet, but I do have high hopes and I think that these horses are capable. I'm just concerned, Eric, from with the 4 Uncaged. He's so hard for me to use. I bet him in the Peter Pan. I bet him last time. Like, I like this horse overall. This is just so much to ask for him coming off of a disappointing effort. Crudo at least has early speed. And Crudo is a horse who, like, let's say Rodriguez stumbles coming out of the gate and Crudo gets to the lead. Well, then Crudo could legitimately, win this race, run second, run third. I don't know if Uncaged can win. So many other things would need to happen for Uncaged to win. I could see it happening with Crudo. So, and what I would do with Crudo, if you're someone who's betting a trifecta or a superfecta, I would use Crudo because at least he'll be showing early speed, Eric, and he might be able to show some speed and then fade and maybe hang around for third. I'm worried about Uncaged overall, just sort of keeping up with the best horses in this group.
Now, for those looking to construct superfectas, trifectas, exactas, what strategies would you recommend in terms of structuring their bets around, Bereza and journalism and sovereignty?
So we can pull up the field right here. A couple things you want to do. One, looking at this race, you have journalism, sovereignty, Baeza. They are your top 3 betting choices. So you don't necessarily want to only use the favorites if you're playing like a trifecta like that. So you have to kind of pick which of the horses are you going to maybe take a stand against and move in a different direction. So the way that I would play it, Eric, I would use Baeza and sovereignty as my top horses in the first spot, or excuse me, Baeza and journalism. Those are my 2. So I'm going to go Baeza 6, journalism 7. I use them in the first spot of the trifecta. I'm definitely using Hill Road in the second spot of the trifecta, and then I would use Rodriguez and maybe even Crudo as the other speed horse. So the 2 that I use in the first spot, I want either journalism or Baeza to win. Then if that happens, I open it up to horses like Hill Road and Rodriguez, possibly even Crudo, to finish second and third, because that's where you could get some value. So I'll try to build my my trifectas using 2 logical horses, Baeza and journalism, and then a couple other price horses.
So you wouldn't have Bereza and journalism. You just have them in the 1 position.
And I would have them in the 1 and in the 2 and in the 3, but I would only have them in the first spot, just those 2. So you would go something like 6, 7 with 1, 3, 5, 6, 7 with, sometimes I even go all in the last race, but like that's how I would structure it, trying to build around journalism and Baeza in the winning spot in the trifecta.
With no Triple Crown on the line, how does the dynamic between journalism and sovereignty shape the narrative of this year's Belmont Stakes? Does this rivalry add a compelling storyline, or are bettors and fans going to be like, you know what, there's no Triple Crown, I'm just not, you know what I mean? Does the draw the luster of the race lag?
I think it's very key that we got both the Derby and Preakness winner, just what you were hitting on, so that there can be a narrative of, hey, we've got the Derby winner versus the Preakness winner. What's also cool is we have the top 3 finishers from the Derby coming back. So we have some of the best horses that have been in this group against each other. And Eric, I've got the sense in just like reading some of the quotes from journalism's owners and trainer, I think they feel like journalism can turn the tables on sovereignty. And I feel like they have been wanting this shot to try to turn the tables on sovereignty. So there's been a kind of fun competitiveness. And we've also heard Belmont, the trainer of sovereignty, basically say, like, I didn't care about running in the Preakness. It didn't bother me at all. This was our plan. So he seemed to be really happy and content with their plan. The journalism folks, they seem like they really wanted to run him in all 3 races. So I am excited from that standpoint, because if we didn't have the Derby winner versus the Preakness winner, there are years like that, Eric, where it's still a good day. There's still a lot of good betting races throughout, big pick 5s, big pick 4s, but the fans that are watching the races just a few times of the year, they don't care as much. They don't care as much when you don't have a Derby winner or in the Preakness, when you don't have a Derby and a Preakness winner in the Belmont. The novice fan, the person that texts me a few times a year, they don't care that much. So we need at least this to happen, because now we can at least, that's the talking point. When I go on shows and other people ask me right away, okay, we got the Derby winner versus the Belmont or versus the Preakness winner. Is it just about those two? And then I get to say, no, I actually think Baeza's got a shot, so I can kind of go there. But we're lucky in racing that we got this field, because it could have been a lot worse if we didn't have journalism back in here after winning the Preakness. Even if it is sovereignty and no journalism, then it's kind of disappointing, because we're wondering, like, oh yeah, like the main rival for sovereignty though isn't even in this race. So if he wins, how good is he? Now we'll probably get a real good idea of, like, how good these 3-year-olds are. How good is journalism? How good is sovereignty?
Now, with Saratoga's reputation being dubbed the graveyard of champions, could we get a better line on journalism to create value for a win bet?
You know what? We might. We really might. Like, and what has happened in a lot of these Triple Crown races, Eric? No horses get bet down that short. And you really don't see like 50-1 shots up there, because there's so many people playing the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont that don't normally play races all the time. They're out at the track. They see big odds up there. They go put $5 to win on the horse that's 40-1. Mm-hmm. And then it brings everybody's odds down. So that way you don't really have huge prices. If journalism is close to sovereignty, if they're close to like the same odds, I really do think journalism is the bet, because he seems like he is the type of horse who is more versatile. I think who can sovereignty beat him in the Derby. In my opinion right now, if they ran 10 times against each other, I think journalism would probably win 7 and sovereignty would probably win 3, just based on what journalism can do himself, running style. He doesn't need to be quite as far back. He can move into the race earlier. And what we saw from him in the Preakness, how he's able to like adapt, overcome. I'm not sure if sovereignty can do that. Like if he got stopped, if he could push through and keep going. So Eric, I do wonder if the money is spread out enough. We may be looking back and going, wow, journalism at like 8-5, 9-5, almost 2-1. That was actually a pretty good price.
Pedigree. How much do you place on pedigree when assessing contenders for the Belmont Stakes, especially with the distant adjustment and Saratoga's unique track characteristics?
That's a really, really good question. And honestly, it comes into play a lot less when it's the 1.25 miles versus the 1.5 miles, because pedigree, we're already looking at pedigree and taking it into account when we're handicapping these horses going into the Kentucky Derby, because it's going to be 1.25 miles there. It's the 1.5 miles that you really start looking at the pedigree and you go, okay, which of these horses, moms and dads or brothers and sisters, were really long distance runners? And that's where you want to upgrade them. I honestly don't think it's as important with the same distance of this race being the distance of the Kentucky Derby.
Now, Belmont aside, not talking the big stakes race. Best bet outside of the Belmont, looking at the broader Belmont Stakes Racing Festival card, which race do you see offering the most promising betting opportunity and why?
Okay, so I'll pull up as we look at the Daily Racing Form past performances. Couple races that I think are interesting. I'll give you a few. So race number 9 on Saturday at Saratoga is going to be the Jaipur Stakes, the Grade 1 Jaipur. The number 9 in this race, AG Bullet, had a brutal trip in her last race. She was moving up on the inside, Eric. She was like third, and then she was second. And the horse that was on the lead started tiring, and AG Bullet tried to move up the rail, and that horse was tiring, and there was no room, and AG Bullet completely stopped and got backed up. She probably would have won at the very least. She would have finished second that day. She just had no chance to run. So I think she's a major player. She's 7-2 on the morning line. And what's nice about her, she's actually involved in the late pick 5 that ends in the Belmont. It starts with race 9, the Jaipur, and it goes races 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So she's a major player. Race 9, the number 9 on Saturday. I'll give you one more that's a big price right next door. Zulu Kingdom is a heavy favorite. I respect. Legitimate horse. There's actually a horse in this field named Noble Confessor, who is still a maiden. He has still not won a race. But last year, he ran against Zulu Kingdom. And in the race he ran against Zulu Kingdom, they were only separated by a neck. But after that race, they both ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Noble Confessor finished 6th. Zulu Kingdom finished 7th. So in 2 races they ran against each other last year, they took turns beating each other. This year, Zulu Kingdom has been awesome. He's won a couple big races, and the only race that Noble Confessor ran in, he finished 2nd. But in that race, it was a wire-to-wire race. It was won by the lone speed. If this race sets up more fair, Noble Confessor and Zulu Kingdom should not be separated by that much on the odds board. If this horse is 12-1 and the other horse is like even money. And Eric, this is one of those horses that people are going to look at and go, he's a maiden. He's never won. I'm not going to bet him in this graded stakes race. So we should get a really good price on Noble Confessor, the number 9, in race number 10. So a couple for you, race 9 and race 10. And what's nice, those are a couple horses, like if you're playing the pick 5s or, like wagers like that, throw them in your pick 5 or pick 4 because they're huge prices. And if they win, they will give you great return on your investment. If you're someone who plays a trifecta or a super, throw them at least in your trifecta because those are the types of horses you're just looking to hit the board like Noble Confessor.
Now, is Noble Confessor your favorite long shot, or is there another long shot in this race, in this card that you like?
Probably the best of like the long shots as far as they're concerned of price wise. I have a lot of horses that are in like the 8-10-1 range, but I think Noble Confessor at like double digit odds, really, really fair value there. A nice long shot to dive into. I could also give you, let's see, there might be one more earlier in the card. That wasn't the bomb one. We had, let's see, might be the Woody Stevens, which is a good sprint. The Woody Stevens, Patch Adams is a horse who I think is really, really interesting. And I like Colloquial. I like a little bit, but Gate to Wire is another really fun long shot, Eric. He's 12-1. He is drawn to the outside. He's the number 11, and he should get a great trip coming from off the pace. So Gate to Wire, another fun long shot to throw into some of your exotics on Saturday.
And what race number is that?
That's race number 11. Race number 11, the number 11. So how about that? We're on race 9, the number 9, and race 11, the number 11 for you. So a couple to the outside, some big prices. Hopefully we can steer you in the right direction a couple times.
Awesome, my man. I appreciate the time.
Eric, let the folks out there know you are always looking at sports right now. It'll be the NBA finals, then it'll be baseball, UFC. I see you doing WNBA stuff. I mean, whatever the big sporting events are that are happening, you're going to be talking about them. You're going to be previewing. You're a professional sports bettor. You make these wagers with your own money. You put the time in. You put the effort in. Where can we find you and follow more of your work?
You can find me at etop21sports on everything. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X. I am all over the place there, posting my 2 cents. And I have a live show that comes out on YouTube and Twitch every Tuesday.
Eric, we'll get you on again in a few weeks because, man, we'll start looking at some NFL divisions pretty soon. How about that? Maybe we'll start doing some future wagers and look at some of those NFL teams and doing some previews. Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate your time as always. We'll be following along with you, and good luck with all your wagers coming up.
Good luck to you, my man.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. A couple more things before we get out of here. Don't forget, Belmont Stakes packages. Do you want help from Wednesday all the way through Sunday? You can save more than 50% if you bundle them all together with the package. Or if you want to go individually, we'll have clocker reports for individual days and past performances for each of those days leading up to the Belmont on Saturday and then Sunday racing at Saratoga. Good luck.